Alright.
Alright, we're back! Once more, we are going into the breach, my dear friends. Let us fill it up with our Vex
Into
dead.
the breach.
Let's get
Hello,
it.
yellow coronas.
This is supposed to be the hardest island, so we'll see how we pull it off.
I hope I can respect both forms of life on this island, organic and mechanical.
Alright, well, I think we do
Thanks,
the star
Cortana.
one first, right? Oh, actually, this one gives
There's
us
a Pokeball down there,
Go
yeah.
Pokeball direction.
We go in the Pokeball
Take
direction.
less than 3 grid damage, protect the cold. Okay. Okay, this is fine.
I feel like those frozen things are gonna release frozen enemies.
These are
Yeah, there's robots inside there.
invincible but unable to move or attack any. Is that including my own units? Oh yeah, it does.
I'm pretty sure those things only attack you.
Okay.
The robots on this island almost all just want to kill you. It's really
they
great.
just shoot in a line. It's back order. High damage. Oh, okay, cool. Gotcha. Okay. I think first things first, I shove. Oh, okay. Not first things first. First things first, I move the plane.
Yes. Block spawn.
Yeah.
Or put in safety and use the little robot guy. They
I mean, I can
shoots.
still block the spawn and do that.
True. And they should. Oh yeah.
Okay, alright.
I was thinking like not taking jet
Okay,
damage.
hold
is what
on.
I
Here's
was
the big brain plane.
thinking.
Here's the big brain plane. I put jet there. I throw this guy there. I shield the building.
Okay.
I don't know if you'd shield that one because that one might be in the way, but
Yeah, it might be in the way.
Find out. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the way.
yeah.
Well, did I reset turn or do I try again?
Man, that's great that you just have another unit with 3 HP though.
Hmm.
It's pretty
How did that
great.
happen? Okay. Alright, first steps first. I move over here. I throw Shieldy Boy here. I think.
Or
Boy.
you could have had Shield Boy stand on that instead of your plane.
I shielded
Or
these.
that works. Alright, that works.
This guy does the big put.
Alright.
Gets everybody off of me. They
And
attack
then
the thing.
artillery
This guy goes
shoots the
over here and
fly.
that breaks that thing free.
Why?
Which is a bad idea.
Well, I'm really playing
I
around.
feel like that's a bad idea.
Yeah, well, oh, that shoots both of them anyways. Holy cats and pajamas, I have screwed up. Well, I already used the reset. We go next.
Hmm.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay. Coal plant's still alive. Coal plant is still alive. I repeat, the coal plant is still alive.
We're down to 2 lightning bolts.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that was fucking funny.
Okay. Fine. Fine.
Oh,
How do I not die?
that was precious.
How do I not die? Okay.
Push.
I think this guy gets. I move here, but if I do that, I break that and I just.
Oh, wait, yeah. If you push, it'll push the scorpion into
I
the
think
thing.
I just die. Wait, no. Nope, yeah, I just died. Huh. Lose? I think I just lose. I'm trying to figure out a way that I don't just lose here. But I'm pretty sure I just lose.
Yeah.
Like, okay, hold on. I can't take any building damage. So, I can't do anything about that guy. Could I can have one of that. Okay, hold on, wait. I have the idea. Nope, that doesn't work. Wait, what's the turn order? What turn is laser mech? 1. Oh! Whoa, wait! Laser mech is 1. How much does laser mech do? Laser mech does 1 to 4 damage. It does. Okay, so we'll do.
Oh, depending on how far.
So 4, 3, 2. So we'll do 2 damage to that one. I need to somehow do 2 damage to it. Can I? There? No. Okay. Man, I should have put it in the range upgrade. Okay.
Oof. Mm.
Well, where can your artillery move?
I actually
Oh,
can
it can't move.
Stuck.
That's right. That's cool.
So.
Unless you, yeah, I don't know.
Wait,
You
hold on.
can't push
If I
because
move
they'll
that
push into the
there,
building.
I can shield that. I can shield that.
Well,
Wait,
we can afford
I
to
can't-
lose one building, so I mean, if he does push, it saves
Yeah.
the 2 buildings there. It's just that we're only left with 1 power left.
Okay, well,
Yep.
I have to push. I think there's no play around me pushing. Right?
That's what it looks like.
That's what it feels like.
Don't think about
Wait,
it. Keep fighting.
That didn't stop the attack? It still sucked?
I mean, you got that guy
crap,
off the
I'm screwed.
building.
Okay, whatever. I can do this then. That's fine. That attack is canceled.
Right. Have your shield tank block a spawn if you can.
Right there. For myself. Guess I just get
Shield
that
building.
Oof. Just big oof. Oh god.
You can't hit anything.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
I
That
know I
was
smoked this
Scramble's
guy.
head for a bit.
Yeah. That way he can't attack me.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, this is. Then that should shoot it. I forgot it hits my units too.
Yeah, the closer. No, it only hits your unit. Well, it tries to only hit your units.
I hit all.
It'll hit all, but seeing
It's trying to
AI.
hit you guys.
What is my unit?
The fuck?
My units. Oh, they back have incoming weapon. Wait. Okay, I need to push this out of the way. That's phase 1. Push that.
Look at where that rock guy spawned.
Here. I need.
Right next to the coal.
Yeah. Are you kidding?
And you can't, and look, you have to like destroy rocks just to get into it. Fucking
What did I
ridiculous.
say about this island? We could have won the game, but instead we came to this island.
I actually have to just do this thing. So I.
It's still dead.
And on that note,
It's okay, it's an 8-minute episode this time, so they'll be full to like, wow, they beat it that fast?
yeah.
Joke's on you guys, we lost that fast. Alright, which pilot do we keep? +3, +1, and +1, +2, and then +2. Okay, I think this guy's the best, right? Best? On a Volca.
Yeah.
Gives me +3 grid and +1 Mac.
She's max level. What other guy?
Yeah,
He's
+1 mech reactor is
But,
really
but
nice.
right, but he's not max level, or
Yeah,
is he
he
now?
is.
He is.
This is all the way.
Okay.
Because he has a special thing. Means +2 XP on the kill. But it doesn't matter if he's full level, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter now.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a bless. Alright, well, thanks for watching, guys. Catch us in the next episode.
Layers.